Hello, and welcome to another episode of Bring Your Own Microphone. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, you may not actually know that I have a podcast called Bring Your Own Microphone, because at this point, it is the only episode from that podcast that is uploaded here. And that's because I record the shows very intermittently. I've had this podcast for, I don't know, for the better part of like 4 years, and there's 6 episodes. This will probably go up as episode 5, as there was an episode that I did for Doki Doki Literature Club that I never actually posted. Usually these sort of spin-off episodes that I do like this, they are done with other people, but we are currently in quarantine. We are all, everyone across the world is practicing self-isolation. So, yes, I could have brought in someone via Discord or Skype or something like that to do the episode with me, but honestly, it's probably something I just kind of need to do by myself. So during isolation, I discovered, it feels weird to say discovered because he's been around for a while, but I came into a performer by the name of Oliver Tree. I'm gonna guess that if you clicked on this podcast, you probably already know who Oliver Tree is. It was only me who didn't know, and apparently I was the only person in the world who didn't know, because around the time I started talking to people about him, people had known about him for a while, and I don't know how I missed him, but I did. And I actually heard of him for the first time on April 7th. I'm recording this on April 24th, so it's been about 3 weeks, and I am just endlessly fascinated with him, and that was sort of the reason I wanted to do this, because we are in self-isolation, and it's sort of hard to, I mean, I don't really go out and talk to a whole lot of people anyway, but I think with all the seriousness and whatnot that's going on, it's hard to pin down anyone and go, let me obsessively talk about this singer that I've just heard of like 3 weeks ago. So that's why I decided to do the episode by myself. I do want to say ahead of time that if I get any facts wrong about Oliver, I am sorry. I have done research, I have read articles, I have watched him in interviews and random YouTube videos, and I definitely watched his interview with Acer HD Productions, Ethan and Ela Klein. But I don't have everything memorized. I did sort of go on a cram session. The date that I came across Oliver is very important, because it was because he was essentially killing the character of Turbo. And that's sort of how I came across him. I was on Twitter and I saw a tag trending that said, the Oliver Tree is over party, or Oliver Tree is over party. You know, people like to use that sort of structure when they are trying to cancel somebody who has done something wrong, or that the internet or Twitter thinks has done something wrong. So kind of being curious and, you know, not really having a whole lot of other better things to do since we are all in isolation. I clicked on it and was just sort of, you know, musing to myself, like, you know, oh God, who is Twitter trying to cancel now, and who the fuck is Oliver Tree? And I came across him, and I realized very quickly that he had actually started the hashtag, or had been encouraging people to use that hashtag to promote his final video for Let Me Down. So I watched it kind of out of sick curiosity, I guess. I saw the pictures of him and thought he looked completely ridiculous, and immediately did not understand what was going on, what he was doing, or why he was doing it, and fully expected his music to be parody or to just be laughably bad. But I clicked on his video, and I was really surprised, like terribly surprised. I was surprised enough to look up the rest of his music on Spotify and just kind of instantly just kind of became consumed and started, watching videos, the rest of his music videos. I think the second one that I ended up watching was probably the All That / Alien Boy video, and then I watched Hurt. No, actually the second one I watched was Fuck. That was the second video I watched. And I was kind of disturbed by how much I was enjoying the music. And then I moved on to Hurt and All That and Alien Boy, and just kind of had to accept that I was really enjoying the music. When I first started kind of realizing what was happening, I said to myself, like, I don't know why this is happening. I don't know how this is happening. And I don't like music with gimmicks, especially if the music is straightforward. If it's a comedy band, like I'm a really big fan of Ninja Sex Party, and, Danny and Brian definitely have their alter egos, and they have their own personalities that kind of go with those alter egos that are, exaggerated versions of themselves. And that's fine, because it is a comedy band. I totally get why they need the alter egos there, or why they would want the alter egos. But listening to Oliver's music and realizing that it was all very sincere, but that he was definitely in character, after I realized he was in character, realizing that he was doing all of this sort of as a persona, it threw me off. And it sort of made me approach his work cautiously, because then my other thought was, oh, well, he's probably sort of taking the Andy Kaufman approach, where he's, this really obnoxious character, and he's super kind of overcommitted to this character, and he kind of does all of his interviews in this character, and you don't really get a straight answer out of him, and he's, keeps everything really private and weird, and I just kind of, I was almost had talked myself out of liking him before I even really did any research on him. And the whole reason we're making this podcast right now is because after I did my research, first of all, I realized just how fucking charming he is. He's even sort of, he does his interviews and stuff sort of pseudo in character, out of character. He's not so committed to the character that you can't get a straight answer out of him, but he obviously does answer some questions as Turbo. He has sort of some routes he won't go down as himself, and he'll sort of bring in Turbo to kind of answer those. But even when he is in character, there's something just oddly very charming about Oliver, and you can, it comes through even when he's sort of putting it on. And then the other thing that I noticed about him, especially from his interview with Ethan and Hila on H3H3, was that he's kind of a genius. What he basically did to be able to do the music videos that he does, and to have that sort of quality of production behind them, is when he signed with Atlantic Records. He put a lot of, I guess, his advance or whatever he was going to be getting from Atlantic Records as like a sign-on bonus, or however that works, and he put it into the music video budget. And so he sort of like prepaid on his music videos. And I think that's genius. I do think that because we sort of live in the age of YouTube now, and we don't really have something like MTV as a staple like it used to be, a lot of music videos are so like just kind of afterthoughts for a lot of artists, which is fine. I don't think there's anything like wrong with that. It's not what I would do if I were a performer. I would definitely be more into the art of making the music video. But hey, sometimes, that's not where the passion for the artist lies. Like I think Modest Mouse is a lot like that. Like they make music videos, but they rarely appear in them, and they only make like a couple per album. So yeah, and that's fine. Like I don't think Isaac Brock really likes the idea of making music videos. I feel like I've heard him say that at some point, but Oliver obviously does. He really loves the music video making process, and it shows. And I love that, and I thought it was so ingenious of him to sort of get control over the process like that, because he's essentially using a lot of his own money. And so I guess that gives him like a certain level of control over how the music videos look and the treatments of them and whatnot. And he's also, from what I remember of the interview with H3H3, is he is using these music videos that he is also directing. He's using these music videos as sort of like a demo reel to be able to direct and produce his own full length features. Which, as a past screenwriter, I write books now, but I wrote screenplays for 10 plus years, probably, I don't know, 15 or something like that. It's fucking ingenious. Like I mean, I never really had an opportunity to really show off any of my, filmmaking skills in that way. But I would hope if I was presented with an opportunity like that I would play it as smart as he did. That was fucking genius. So in the last, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks or so, I have started making a list of all the reasons that I like Oliver Tree. And it started as just kind of a couple of bullet points I want to write down to sort of be able to kind of process everything that happened. Because something that happened when I really started getting into his music is that there was sort of this accelerated, rushed kind of thing that was happening, because I realized very quickly that Oliver was going to, he was killing the gimmick of Turbo. And so FOMO kind of kicked in, and I kind of got PTSD back to getting into bands that broke up, and then all their merch just sort of disappeared from the face of the earth. And so when I realized that Oliver was sort of retiring the character, everything just sort of kicked into high gear. So I think facets of this that would have taken a couple of weeks, it all kind of happened over a couple of days. And so like a lot of the research and a lot of the mindset that I would have approaching a new artist, that usually kind of happens over a span. It was all just like, bam, a week. And then it was like, and now I suddenly have 2 Oliver Tree shirts, and I'm watching all these interviews with him, and I know all the lyrics to the music, and, I'm looking forward to going to live shows, even though only God knows when the next live show will happen at this point. But, so yeah, it's all been kind of rushed and accelerated. And so I think in that mindset, I really needed to sort of break down the reasons that I liked him, since there wasn't like as much time for me to really think about it. It was all just sort of fucking happening. And so I made a list on my phone. And I think this sort of space that I've given myself to talk about him is kind of the perfect place to do this, because it's probably the only place I'll really get to do this, because none of my friends want to hear me talk obsessively about Oliver. No one. Like he is, I wouldn't say he's old news to people, but he's been on their radar for a while, and they've already had like the initial like, oh my God, isn't it so crazy? The bowl cut and the Janko jeans and the slides with the socks. Oh my gosh, isn't it nutty? And oh, he has to die in all of his videos. Oh, he's so crazy. Like, all this is very new to me, and all my friends have sort of had time with it. So it'll just be me. And I don't know how many people are going to listen to this. Maybe 3. Hi to 3 people that are listening to this. I know I am not the most interesting, droning voice to listen to for 30, 40 minutes, however long this is going to be. But bear with me. This kind of is really for me. It really is so that I can kind of get this all out of my system and just go back to my normal life, because when I say that I have become obsessed with Oliver Tree, it is not an understatement. I have been trying to listen to other people because Oliver, for the most part, on Spotify, has about 53 minutes of music. And so it's just been me repeating the same like 19, 20, or 20 songs for about 3 weeks. And I swear to God, I've been trying to listen to other stuff because I don't want to burn out on him, but it's all so new and also, and also novel. I'm just listening obsessively, and all I want to do is talk about Oliver and like, and how unique I think he is, and how incredibly I think he plays that character and all that stuff. So I'm just going to take this opportunity to just kind of let it all out so I can go back to listening to, other artists. I can actually have like a playlist that I listen to that has more than one person on it. So if no one listens to this, that is fine. If you listen to the first 5 minutes and no one ever makes it to this part of this podcast, that's fine too. This is really like an Amanda thing. But I am going to read off the reasons that I wrote down that I like Oliver. And these are just reasons that I compiled while I was listening to the music, or I was watching him in interviews, or watching compilations of like, quote unquote, out of character Oliver Tree. These are just little observations I've had. Please, Oliver Tree fans, again, do not come for me if these things have already been proven wrong, or if this is not a belief that you hold about him. These are just my own kind of personal observations. So the first thing I have here is no lyrics degrading women. And this actually came to me while I was listening to Enemy, because it's sort of the one song where he talks about being wronged by a woman. And usually in songs like that, there's a lot of like calling the girl a bitch or a hoe or a slut, or throwing some other kind of derogatory term at her. And as I was listening to it, and I started picking up at the lyrics where I had this weird feeling where I was like, the song is great, but there's something very different about it. There's something very strange about it. And then like, I listened to it over and over again, and I realized that he still, talks about her as a person instead of like this evil like demon. I think the most intense word he uses for her is supervillain, and it is a song that expresses like being hurt by these actions instead of being angered and vindictive by these actions. And so that kind of got me to listening to, or more closely listening to, the lyrics of all of his songs. And from what I've heard on Spotify and from what I've heard on YouTube and whatnot, there's no like lyrics where he is, demeaning women in any sort of like extreme and, this vile way. And and a lot of people call Drake like the most sensitive guy in rap, but I don't think that's true. I really think it's Oliver Tree. Like, because and I'm not gonna go all PC and say like, you can't listen to rappers that say those things about women. I'm not saying there isn't room to improve or there isn't room to change. I'm saying that it is not going to be me that is going to bring about that change. And I don't really expect anyone listening to this to be the person to want to bring about that change. And that is fine. That is a very big thing. But I just thought it was interesting. I just thought it was interesting that Oliver does do hip hop songs and has chosen to not sort of fall into that trope. Now, if there is a video of him in some like unreleased clip, or on the album that he kiboshed like the night before it dropped, if there is a song on there where he just goes like fucking full force, then I'm sorry, I got that wrong. But just from what I've heard, that's an observation that I've made. So the next bullet point here that I have is probably going to be a bit of a controversial one. If more than a couple people ever listen to this. So the very first time I heard Oliver sing, I thought he was British just because he has a very sort of British cadence to his voice. And maybe part of that was the person he reminded me of. So because the first video I saw was Let Me Down, I, for whatever reason, he looked like the guy, and I don't know why, but he looked like the guy that does like the backing vocals in Dare by Gorillaz. I don't fucking know why, but that guy is very British, obviously very British. And he came, I don't know. I can't even explain it. I don't even remember what that guy from the Dare video fucking looks like, but I saw Oliver and that was just maybe it was the jacket. I think maybe I saw like a live performance of Dare, and maybe there was like a similar sort of silhouette with him in the jacket. I don't know, but also there's something about Oliver's voice, and maybe it's intentional because he is very into like the 90s style and the 90s nostalgia. There's something very like 90s Brit rock about his voice, and I really do think that it was on purpose. Maybe not. I don't know. That's probably one of those things that I'm gonna probably get reamed out for if anyone actually makes it this far into it. But I just thought it was very interesting. I love that cadence, that sort of kind of open vocal. Oop, hit the microphone. That sort of like open vocal sort of delivery. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I don't really have the sort of musical vocabulary to really describe it. But if you listen to bands from like a lot of like garage rock and a lot of like Brit pop and stuff from the 90s, like there's definitely like a similarity there. So there's that. So the next bullet point I have here is honestly, it's my favorite thing about Oliver, and I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, which is he will come out of characters for interviews and be straightforward. No Andy Kaufman moments is what I have next to 3. And I love that. Like I know a lot of people admire Andy Kaufman for being super committed to that sort of persona that he played in the public, and that there wasn't a whole lot of people who would ever really, outside of his family, I suppose, who really knew who he was on like a really personal level. And I totally get that that's admirable and whatnot, but I also like the idea that Oliver will sort of wiggle in and out of character for interviews and stuff like that. Like you can see that there is insincerity to him that is him and not, and he's not, putting on any airs or anything. He's answering, a question very straightforward, or he's greeting someone in a very straightforward manner. And something else that was kind of interesting is he will refer to what he does as the Oliver Tree Project, even as he's like in his get up and everything, which I think is very interesting. I just find it very, very fascinating that he is able to sort of weave in and out of character for appearances and stuff. It's cool. I really dig that. The next bullet I have here, it says, doesn't explain what his lyrics are about, doesn't want to dictate how other people listen to it, which is something as a writer, I am very on board with. I mean, I do enjoy hearing authors sort of break down their stories and whatnot, and I do enjoy stuff like Lyric Genius when people go on there and they talk about their songs and whatnot, and they express what they were feeling or what they meant. I do enjoy that, but I enjoy equally an artist just not giving that sort of information away, and letting sort of people determine what it means to them and how they perceive it and how they apply it. And that kind of seems to be what Oliver does. He completely just he didn't really take the Lyric Genius videos or the Lyric Genius stuff too seriously. I think he did one for Hurt, and he also did one for, oh god, I can't remember the other song he did, but he didn't really take either one of them seriously. And it wasn't because he was like being an asshole or anything. I think it was just he just didn't want to dictate how people how people listen to it. And as an author, like, I sort of have a no faces on the book cover rule, kind of for that same reason. I don't want to dictate how people should be seeing the character as they're reading. I want them to form their own figure. Like, I know what the character looks like, but that's for me. That's for me to be able to sort of see facial expressions and see the way they move and all these idiosyncrasies and whatnot. That's for me. But I don't feel like it's really necessary for me to say, this is how you need to see this character. And, so here's this picture of them on the cover. And so every time you read a line by this character, or you read description of what this character is doing, this is what you have to picture while you're doing that. So, I thought that was really a cool little tidbit about him. My next bullet point, I don't think I really have any substance for it. I was watching him on, with, oh god, I'm going to mispronounce his name. Churdleys, I think, which is someone that he has done a lot of, a good bit of content with. I have seen Churdleys before, but I did not know his name. I had never really seen any of his content until I sort of went on a YouTube deep dive for Oliver's stuff. And he came up and I saw on Turdley's second channel that there was sort of like a vlogging day that him and Oliver had while they were doing the scooter video. I can't remember the title of it, but it was just like the video that they did where they were like approached by skateboarders or something and they got punked out. I don't know. I've seen that video once, but so after watching some of his stuff with Churdleys, I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. I wrote down, he seems overall like a good sport about everything. I think maybe I was referencing the fact, since I was watching like all the behind the scenes stuff, I was watching him like he was just beet red, and you could tell it was hot and it had been out in the sun for a really long time. But he showed up for his friend and they did this skit together, and he he was committed to it. And also there was a part in the vlog where he had to do like some like, not Foley, but like some off screen kind of grunts and noises and whatnot for the fight scenes. And Churdleys was like giving him direction, and he had to like do this sort of same grunt or noise over and over again. And, he wanted to get it right. You could tell that he really wanted to nail it. And like, I think even after Churdleys was like, yeah, that's good, we can go with that, he was like, one more time, let me try it again. So I think that's what inspired he seems like an overall good sport about everything. At least I hope that's what it was. That seems to fit, I guess. Right, so the next bullet point that I have here is he's really committed to doing his own stunts. And this was definitely a reference to the music videos. So one of the things that I officially learned, I'll say, in the H3H3 podcast was that Oliver does basically all of his own stunts. And this can actually be seen in sort of that mockumentary that he did for the video for Hurt as well. You can see that he's doing all the stunts in that one. But I didn't quite believe he was doing all of these scooter tricks until he went on to H3H3 and said that he was doing them. I think I'd heard him say that, but sometimes his delivery of things kind of downplays the seriousness of what he's saying. So, and another example of that is during the Lyric Genius interview for Hurt, he tells a story about basically like fucking bailing on his scooter and like, completely fucking himself up for a summer, which was a story I 100% did not believe. Just because, again, I think the aesthetic of Oliver sort of detracts from what he says sometimes if it's a more serious thing. And so when he went on to H3H3 and he kind of broke it down a bit more and he sounded a bit more sincere about describing the accident and went into more detail, that's when I was like, oh yeah, that's real. Like that actually happened. And then he showed the photos as well. So the same thing with the scooter tricks. I think I'd heard him say that he had done the scooter tricks in the All That, Alien Boy video, and he had done like the monster truck, trick as well, or both the tricks that's in there. But I wasn't buying it until I heard him say it on there, and there was sort of a bit more sincerity behind it and a bit more kind of seriousness behind it. And I really admire that. I imagine the insurance on his music videos are astronomical, because, here's the talent, being dangled, to fucking like free fall or nearly free fall. He's got a cable on, but still, he's, coming off of fucking jumping over buildings and like, fucking flipping in the air on a razor scooter and yeah, like he's the talent. It's kind of like, what I imagine the insurance on fucking Tom Cruise movies being, when you have your fucking main face of the video, like risking their life or, sort of risking their safety. But I admire it. I love it. I think that's really dope. And it's something that you really don't see a lot of other artists doing. I remember several years ago, Pink, she sort of learned how to do a bunch of sort of Cirque du Soleil esque acrobatics for her show. And I thought that was really neat. But for the most part, you don't really see artists committing to doing like sort of more physical aspects of the visual performance of their craft, because there's so much focus on the music, which, is fine. I don't need, freaking, I don't know, Franz Ferdinand, like doing their own stunts or anything. Like it's fine if you don't. But it's interesting if you do. I think that's the whole, that's the whole point of this. So yeah, that was something that I found very, one of the many things I found very unique about Oliver. So my next bullet point, was actually one of the very first thoughts that I had about Oliver was that, well, when I first saw him, I thought his weird gimmick or like his sort of, his, whatever he's doing, his sort of in character stuff, I thought it was all to overcompensate for a lack of talent. And this was before I heard any songs by him. This was me just sort of clicking on Twitter and seeing his picture come up and seeing him trying to rally fans to use the hashtag to watch his video for, Let Me Down and whatnot. It was all like I was judging the book by its cover, basically. And so once I realized he was like an artist, a singer and whatnot, I was like, oh, there's no way he can actually be good because he's got all this other bullshit going on with the bowl cut and like the Janko jeans and the scooter and everything. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but there's no way there's talent behind that, because he wouldn't want to take away from any real talent that he would have. He would want to, make that as center stage as possible. And he wouldn't want anything to detract from that. But, I think Oliver makes it work. The gimmick really does work well with the music, even though they're not any way dependent upon each other, I guess. He doesn't make comedy music, and so he doesn't need sort of like a weird get up to add to that, but somehow they sort of independently work on their own, but they also like complement each other, like the music being sincere and him playing this character. And I don't know how he does it. That I think that's the one thing that I haven't really been able to crack, is that I don't know how he's managed to make these two kind of opposing ideas or concepts work, like this very serious approach to music with this very not so serious character that he portrays. Again, another reason that I think he's a genius. He's just sort of, he has some sort of formula that he is applying that works super well. So the last thing I wrote here was something I wrote after watching him on H3H3. And it says that he seems very sincere and conscious of how he comes off, even when he's in character. Turbo is definitely not a character he uses to make fun of anyone or offend anyone. He always wants the character to be the joke. I think I've basically explained, my feelings about it just from that. But yes, I noticed that, especially in the mockumentary stuff that he did for the behind the scenes on Hurt, I realized that Oliver will always make Turbo the joke. He never plays that character at the expense of anyone else. And he doesn't seem like he ever wants to be offensive with the character or say anything mean-spirited with the character. Like, it is pure silliness. Like, that character is pure fucking silliness. And it is a sort of like companion to the music, but it is in no way like an excuse for him to be an asshole. And with him being the age that he is, I think I looked up, I didn't look up Oliver's age, but it came up somewhere and it said that he was 26. He may be a little bit older than that. I think that article was maybe like a year or two old. So, he may be 27, 28 or something like that by now. But with him being that age, it just seems like he would, traditionally someone his age and with what he's doing, he would use that character to be an asshole, to be sort of the excuse to say really rude things and just be terrible. But he doesn't. He seems very conscious about what he says and how he comes off and how people perceive it and whatnot. And he just feels like someone that, even when he's in character, he doesn't want anyone to ever walk away without having like a meaningful reaction or a meaningful interaction with him in some way, which is again, just really, really cool to see. And, and I sort of came to this conclusion by just sort of some of the stuff he would say when he was being interviewed by Ethan and Hila. He just seemed like he just wanted to leave a good impression. But not while, completely abandoning sort of the silliness of the character. He was still very, very funny and kind of had that bratty, kind of California kid thing going on. Like, that's basically the Turbo character, but still just very sweet, very charming, very kind of disarmingly, nice and decent. And yeah, and that's, that was just really refreshing to see. So yeah, those are the 8 little, boxes, the little ticks that I have for why I like Oliver Tree. Yeah, I keep saying I don't know how I got into him and I don't know how this has happened, but I honestly feel like this is, like, I've been working my way up to him for a while. It all started with Sugar Pine 7. I was really into that craziness, which is just all just like frat boy fucking humor. And also I really got into Joji, and Tyler, the Creator, in the last couple of years. And they sort of, they both are artists that have like that sort of very oddball kind of aesthetic to what they do. So yeah, I think I have been working my way up to Oliver for a while. And it's nice to be here. It's good to be here. So hopefully this will just kind of reset my brain and it'll reset my life, and I can move Oliver Tree to the part of my brain that likes things normally and not an obsessive amount, because it really has been just a very distracting kind of thing. He's all I want to listen to. He's all I want to talk about, and I'm a 32-year-old fucking woman, and I can't have that kind of craziness in my life right now. So I hope that this resets my brain. If it doesn't, then I guess there might be a part 2 of this in the future. So thank you for listening to this. Again, I don't know what kind of audience this is going to reach. Probably not very many people. Again, that's okay. This was very much just for me. But if you like the sound of my voice, or maybe my impeccable sense of humor, like I said, this is a podcast that I've done a couple of episodes of. If you can search the iTunes store for it, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Also the other the podcast that you can see that on this channel that I have multiple episodes of is a sort of limited run podcast that I did called $1 Million Day Player. It was a tribute to one of my favorite actors, Peter Green. So you can check that out if you want. I have a bunch of like weird, shitty videos on his channel, so I wouldn't encourage anyone to really look at that stuff. But thank you if you listen to this podcast. Thank you for doing so. And yeah, I hope that once all the COVID-19 stuff is done, that Oliver releases Ugly is Beautiful, which is the album he decided to shelve because of everything that's going on. And that I get to see him live, because I think that would be really rad, and that would kind of bring everything full circle and be really great. It'd be really great. So thanks again.